At the beginning of this story, in the shadow of prestigious campuses and elite colleges, a drama unfolds that concerns not only education, but also status, belonging, and the future. Ambitions and Aspirations is a chapter that sheds light on parental dreams and pursuits, revealing their impact on their children's lives. In the background of these ambitions lies a multi-layered image of society, where the prestige of colleges is seen as the key to success, and the path to achieving it becomes an arena of both moral and material competition. Parents, for whom the best interests of their children are paramount, find themselves in a situation where the boundaries between support and manipulation become unclear. The desire to provide their children with the best start in life leads to making decisions that will have far-reaching consequences, not only for their families, but for the entire educational system. Thus begins our journey through the labyrinth of ambitions and aspirations, revealing both the dark and hopeful aspects of striving for success in the world of American higher education. I invite you to delve further into this story, which is not only a reflection on the educational system, but also on the values that shape our society. Chapter 1: Ambitions and Aspirations. Thread A: Parents' dreams of prestigious colleges for their children. In the prestigious neighborhoods of American metropolises, where every detail of the home, car brand, and even the schools their children attend serve as symbols of social status, parents' dreams of securing their offspring's admission into the most elite colleges become almost an obsession. In this community, where each success is worth its weight in gold, and children's futures seem preordained, a prestigious college is viewed not only as a gateway to a better life, but also as a validation of parental worth and social belonging. These parents, often alumni of renowned institutions themselves, understand that the path to such establishments is fraught with challenges and obstacles. They are acutely aware that doors opened by the Ivy League or other prestigious universities can offer their children not just an outstanding education, but also access to exclusive networks of contacts, which could be key to future successes. In this context, the pressure for their children to succeed transforms into a determination to act, sometimes leading to risky and ethically questionable decisions. As the narrative unfolds, audiobook listeners are drawn into a world where, for some parents, the ends justify the means. This story unravels the emotional and social complexity that parents must confront, showing how ambition, coupled with desperation and societal expectations, leads to the first steps down a slippery slope that will ultimately weigh heavily on the fates of entire families and have far-reaching consequences. Chapter 1: Ambitions and Aspirations. Thread B: The Pressures and Expectations on Young People. In the same affluent environments where parents harbor dreams of prestigious college admissions for their children, young individuals navigate a labyrinth of expectations and pressures that shape their adolescence. From an early age, these children are acutely aware of the legacy they are expected to uphold, not only academically, but also in extracurricular realms. This thread delves into the internal worlds of these youths, who are caught in a relentless pursuit of excellence, driven by the fear of disappointing their families and tarnishing the family name. The narrative explores the dichotomy between the external projection of confidence and the internal turmoil of self-doubt and anxiety that many of these students face. It portrays the rigorous schedules that dominate their lives, hours of study, music lessons, sports practices, and community service, all meticulously planned to craft the perfect college application. However, beneath this facade of perfection lies a profound struggle with burnout, identity, and the desire for genuine passion beyond societal expectations. Listeners are introduced to characters who represent the diversity of experiences within this pressured environment. The star athlete who fears he's nothing without his sport, the valedictorian who hasn't slept properly in months, and the artist who feels her creativity is stifled by the need to conform. Through their stories, the audiobook paints a vivid picture of the high-stakes environment these young individuals navigate, highlighting the moments of vulnerability, resilience, and the search for self amidst the cacophony of expectations. This thread not only offers a critique of the immense pressure placed on young people in these elite circles, but also invites listeners to reflect on the broader implications of this culture on mental health and well being. It challenges the listener to consider the true cost of success and the value of pursuing one's genuine interests and passions. Chapter 2: The Architect of the Scandal. Thread A: Portrait of Rick Singer, the Mastermind. This segment introduces Rick Singer, the enigmatic and ambitious orchestrator behind the college admission scandal. Listeners are drawn into the backstory of a man who started as a college coach and consultant, only to evolve into the architect of one of the most sophisticated and deceitful schemes in the history of American education. The narrative explores Singer's journey from his modest beginnings, highlighting his exceptional ability to navigate and manipulate the complex landscape of college admissions. Singer's charisma and persuasive skills are at the forefront, as the audiobook delves into how he was able to win the trust of wealthy parents, convincing them of his ability to secure their children's admission into elite colleges through what he termed the side door. His pitch was seductive and seemingly foolproof, offering a guaranteed path to admission for the children of the rich and powerful, bypassing the traditional meritocratic front door and avoiding the uncertainty of the back door, donations and legacy admissions. The thread also examines Singer's rationale and justification for his actions, providing insight into his complex psychology. It unveils how he rationalized the exploitation of the system as a service to clients willing to pay for certainty in the admissions process, viewing himself as a problem solver in a flawed system rather than a criminal mastermind. Listeners are guided through the intricate network Singer established, involving corrupt college coaches, test proctors, and others, which enabled him to carry out his scheme. The audiobook paints a picture of a man who, driven by greed and a distorted sense of entrepreneurial spirit, crossed ethical and legal boundaries, ultimately leading to his downfall. This thread sets the stage for the scandal's impact, laying the foundation for understanding how Singer's actions would unravel, affecting not only the families involved, but also the broader educational and societal landscape. Chapter 2: The Architect of the Scandal. Thread B: Recruiting the First Clients. The second thread of Chapter 2 shifts focus to the initial phase of Rick Singer's operation, detailing how he began recruiting his first clients. This part of the story provides a look into the methods Singer used to enter the circles of the wealthy and influential, leveraging his understanding of their desires and fears regarding their children's college admissions. Listeners are introduced to the subtle art of persuasion Singer employed. He didn't just sell a service, he sold assurance and exclusivity. His early pitches were carefully crafted, targeting parents at elite prep schools and exclusive social gatherings. He presented himself as the only one who truly understood the game of college admissions, someone who could guarantee their child's entry into schools that seemed just out of reach. This thread explores the dynamics of these initial interactions, highlighting the mix of skepticism and allure that potential clients felt. Singer's ability to cite success stories, whether embellished or real, played a crucial role in swaying parents. He tapped into a network of early adopters, those who took a chance on his scheme, which would later become testimonials to his effectiveness. As the story unfolds, listeners learn about the intricate dance of trust building that Singer mastered. He knew how to exploit the fears of parents who felt the system was stacked against them, convincing them that his methods, although unconventional, were simply leveling the playing field. The narrative also delves into the psychological aspects of these early relationships. It examines the moral and ethical justifications that clients made to themselves in agreeing to partake in Singer's scheme. This thread not only sets up the expansion of Singer's operation, but also offers a critical view of the societal pressures and values that made these parents susceptible to his pitch. Through detailed storytelling, this part of the audiobook paints a vivid picture of the beginnings of a scandal that would eventually captivate the nation, laying bare the vulnerabilities and ambitions that allowed it to flourish. Chapter 3: The Network of Influence. Thread A: How Singer Built His Web Among the Elite. This thread delves into Rick Singer's strategic expansion of his influence across the upper echelons of society, illustrating how he meticulously built a web that connected him with the wealthy and powerful. The narrative explores Singer's innate ability to network, identifying and exploiting opportunities within elite social circles that would ultimately allow his scheme to flourish on a grand scale. Listeners are guided through Singer's calculated approach to networking, starting with his presence at high-profile events, exclusive country clubs, and private school functions. He positioned himself as an elite college admissions consultant, someone who not only understood the system, but had mastered a way to navigate it to his client's advantage. Singer's charm and persuasive rhetoric enabled him to become a sought-after figure among those desperate to secure their children's future in prestigious colleges. The audiobook details the techniques Singer used to gain endorsements from influential figures, often leveraging his early successes to attract more clients. Word of mouth in these exclusive communities played a crucial role in expanding his operation. Singer knew that a recommendation from a trusted source within these circles was worth more than any advertisement. As Singer's reputation grew, so did his network of collaborators, including college coaches and administrators willing to participate in his scheme for their gain. This thread examines the quid pro quo relationships that Singer established, ensuring that those who helped him were well compensated, creating a cycle of complicity and profit. Listeners are exposed to the dual nature of Singer's network. On one side, the wealthy parents eager for a guarantee of admission for their children, and on the other, the college officials and facilitators ready to bend the rules for the right price. This intricate network was the backbone of Singer's operation, enabling him to manipulate the admissions process on a scale previously unseen. Through this exploration, the audiobook sheds light on the broader societal implications of Singer's network, questioning the integrity of the college admissions process and the lengths to which individuals will go to preserve their status and legacy. This thread sets the stage for understanding the systemic vulnerabilities that allowed Singer's scheme to thrive. Chapter 3: The Network of Influence. Thread B: The Expansion of Singer's Operation. In this thread, the narrative shifts to detail the expansion of Rick Singer's operation, exploring how his initial successes with a handful of wealthy families snowballed into a large-scale scandal that implicated dozens of individuals across the United States. This part of the story highlights the mechanisms and strategies Singer employed to scale up his fraudulent activities, demonstrating his transition from a consultant for the wealthy to the mastermind of a national conspiracy. Listeners are taken through the evolution of Singer's scheme, from manipulating SAT and ACT scores to fabricating athletic profiles for students who were sometimes unaware of their parents' actions. The audiobook describes how Singer capitalized on the vulnerabilities within the college admissions system, exploiting side doors that allowed for manipulated credentials and bribes to appear as legitimate admissions. As Singer's operation grew, so did the complexity of his schemes. This thread delves into the technological and logistical advancements he implemented, including the establishment of a fake charity to launder money from his clients, disguising their payments as donations. This not only allowed parents to feel a sense of detachment from the bribery, but also offered them the benefit of tax deductions, adding another layer of incentive to participate. The narrative also examines the broader network of accomplices that became integral to Singer's operation, including test proctors willing to correct answers, college coaches who fabricated recruitment profiles, and graphic designers who created fake athletic achievements. Each played a pivotal role in creating a facade of legitimacy around the students' applications. Through detailed accounts, listeners gain insight into the sheer audacity of Singer's expanded operation, which, despite its complexity, remained undetected for years. This thread exposes the systemic failures and the collective blindness of institutions and individuals alike, which enabled such a scheme to proliferate. This part of the audiobook not only chronicles the logistical growth of Singer's fraudulent activities, but also invites listeners to reflect on the moral and ethical erosion that facilitated the scandal's expansion. It paints a picture of a society increasingly willing to bend the rules, questioning the values instilled in the next generation, and the true cost of success at any price. Chapter 4, Operation Varsity Blues. Thread B, Secret Operations and Recordings. This thread dives into the heart of the covert operations that were instrumental in gathering evidence against Rick Singer and his clientele. It details the FBI's strategic use of Singer himself, once he had agreed to cooperate, to incriminate participants in the scheme. This part of the story offers listeners a dramatic and tense insight into how secret recordings and undercover meetings were pivotal in exposing the scandal. The narrative outlines how, under the direction of federal agents, Singer reached out to his clients under the guise of routine communications, while secretly recording these conversations to capture admissions of involvement in the fraud. These recordings provided undeniable evidence of the widespread complicity among affluent parents, coaches, and Singer in the manipulation of the college admissions process. Listeners are taken through the technical and logistical aspects of setting up these covert operations, including the challenges of recording high-quality audio in various settings, from private homes to public restaurants. The thread reveals the tension and risk involved in these operations, with agents constantly wary of blowing their cover or tipping off suspects. The audiobook also focuses on specific, pivotal recordings that played a significant role in the case. It dramatizes key moments, such as a parent's casual admission of bribing an SAT proctor, or a coach acknowledging they had recruited students who had never played their sport. These recordings provided not only evidence for prosecutions, but also a shocking revelation to the public about the depth of the corruption. This thread highlights the emotional and ethical dilemmas faced by those involved in the secret operations, including the agents and Singer himself. It explores the impact of these recordings on the families involved, many of whom were unaware of the impending legal storm. Through this detailed account, the audiobook offers listeners a gripping look at the covert side of Operation Varsity Blues, emphasizing the meticulous and daring efforts to capture evidence and the moral complexities of using deceit to combat deceit. This narrative segment underscores the fragile boundary between privacy and the pursuit of justice, providing a thought-provoking reflection on the lengths to which law enforcement must go to expose corruption at the highest levels of society. Chapter 5, Cracks in the System. Thread A, Early Warning Signs and Whistleblowers. This thread delves into the overlooked warning signs and the courageous actions of whistleblowers who attempted to expose the corrupt practices within the college admissions system before the full scope of Operation Varsity Blues came to light. It offers listeners a poignant look at the missed opportunities and challenges faced by those who dared to speak out against the injustices they observed. The narrative begins with an exploration of the systemic vulnerabilities that allowed Rick Singer's scheme to thrive unnoticed for years. It details specific instances where faculty, administrators, and even students raised concerns about irregularities in admissions and athletic recruitment processes. These early alarms, often dismissed or minimized by institutions, underscore the broader failures within the system to safeguard integrity and fairness. Listeners are introduced to the stories of key whistleblowers who played critical roles in bringing attention to the scandal. This includes guidance counselors who noticed discrepancies in students' applications, athletic coaches who questioned the credentials of recruited athletes, and university employees who reported suspicious financial transactions. The audiobook highlights the personal and professional risks these individuals faced, from retaliation and ostracization to legal threats, as they stood up for what they believed was right. The thread also examines the cultural and institutional barriers that hindered effective action based on these warnings. It reflects on the reluctance of prestigious institutions to closely scrutinize their own practices and the societal pressures that prioritize success over integrity. The narrative questions what could have been done differently had these early warning signs been taken more seriously. Through compelling storytelling, this part of the audiobook pays tribute to the unsung heroes of the scandal and prompts a critical discussion on the importance of whistleblowing in exposing corruption. It challenges listeners to consider the value of ethical courage in the face of systemic wrongdoing and the collective responsibility to protect the fairness of educational opportunities. This thread not only sheds light on the cracks in the admission system, but also inspires a deeper reflection on how to build a more just and accountable educational landscape. Chapter 5: Cracks in the System. Thread B: Internal Conflicts and Doubts Among Participants. This thread explores the internal turmoil and moral quandaries experienced by participants deeply entangled in Rick Singer's college admissions scheme. It unveils the psychological and emotional landscape of those who, while complicit, faced moments of doubt and conflict about their involvement. This part of the narrative offers a nuanced view of human complexity, revealing the internal struggles that accompanied the outward facade of success and confidence. Listeners are guided through the personal stories of various scheme participants, including parents, coaches, and administrators who, despite benefiting from the corrupt system, grappled with guilt and uncertainty. The audiobook delves into the moments of introspection and hesitation that some experienced, highlighting the ethical dilemmas that haunted them as the reality of their actions began to weigh heavily on their conscience. The narrative sheds light on the rationalizations and justifications that participants used to alleviate their discomfort, from convincing themselves of the necessity of their actions to survive in a competitive landscape, to viewing their involvement as a minor infraction in a system already perceived as flawed. These justifications, however, did not fully quell the underlying knowledge of wrongdoing, leading to a spectrum of internal conflicts that varied in intensity and outcome among the individuals involved. This thread also examines the impact of these internal conflicts on personal relationships and professional lives. It touches on the strain and isolation felt by those who could not share their involvement or doubts with others for fear of legal repercussions or social ostracization. The audiobook portrays the moments of crisis and decision-making that led some participants to reconsider their actions and, in rare instances, to withdraw from the scheme or take steps to mitigate their involvement. By offering a closer look at the internal struggles of the participants, this part of the audiobook invites listeners to reflect on the broader themes of morality, complicity, and redemption. It challenges the black and white portrayal of the individuals involved, presenting a more complex tapestry of human behavior and the capacity for self-reflection and change. Through these personal stories, listeners are prompted to consider the ethical boundaries they themselves might navigate in the pursuit of success and the importance of integrity in the face of temptation. Chapter 6: The Legal Gambit. Thread A: Arrests and Public Reaction. This thread zeroes in on the pivotal moment when the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office made their move, arresting key figures involved in the college admission scandal, including Rick Singer, coaches, administrators, and parents. It captures the shockwaves these arrests sent through communities across the United States, sparking a nationwide conversation about privilege, corruption, and the integrity of the college admissions process. Listeners are taken to the early morning hours of the arrests, described with a sense of immediacy and tension. The audiobook details the coordination behind the scenes as law enforcement agencies across the country knocked on doors, disrupting the lives of the wealthy and powerful in a way that few could have anticipated. This moment is depicted as a dramatic turning point, not just for those involved, but for the public at large. The narrative then shifts to the media frenzy that ensued, with news outlets broadcasting images of well-known figures being taken into custody. It discusses the public's reaction, ranging from outrage and schadenfreude to empathy and concern for the students involved. The thread delves into the discussions that erupted on social media, in living rooms, and in classrooms about the fairness of the college admissions system and the lengths to which some would go to secure their children's future. This part of the audiobook also explores the immediate impact of the arrests on the institutions implicated in the scandal. It describes the emergency meetings held by university boards, the statements of condemnation issued, and the swift actions taken to distance themselves from the scandal. The thread examines the broader implications for higher education, prompting a reevaluation of admissions policies and practices. By focusing on the arrests and the public reaction, this thread captures a moment of collective reckoning, offering listeners a window into the intense emotions and complex debates that the scandal unleashed. It sets the stage for the legal battles to come, highlighting the societal divisions and ethical questions that would define the discourse around Operation Varsity Blues. Through this narrative, listeners are invited to reflect on the values that underpin the American education system and the societal norms. Chapter 6, The Legal Gambit. Thread B, Trials and Defense Strategies. This thread delves into the legal aftermath of the arrests, focusing on the courtroom battles, the defense strategies employed by the accused, and the prosecutorial tactics that shaped the outcomes of the cases. It provides listeners with an inside look at the complex legal maneuvers and ethical debates that unfolded as the justice system sought to hold those involved accountable. The narrative begins with an overview of the charges brought against the participants, ranging from mail and wire fraud to money laundering. It explains the legal foundation of these charges and the potential penalties they carried, setting the stage for the high-stakes legal drama that would ensue. Listeners are then guided through the initial court appearances, where the accused and their legal teams faced a barrage of media attention and public scrutiny. The audiobook highlights the diversity of defense strategies, from those who pled guilty in hopes of leniency to those who mounted vigorous defenses, arguing that their actions, while ethically questionable, were not criminal. One focal point is the legal debate over the definition of bribery and fraud within the context of college admissions, a debate that challenged existing interpretations of the law and forced the courts to consider the nuances of privilege and influence peddling in higher education. The thread examines key moments in the trials, including pivotal testimonies, cross-examinations, and the presentation of evidence, such as the secret recordings made by Rick Singer. As the legal proceedings unfold, the audiobook explores the personal and professional fallout for the defendants, many of whom faced significant jail time, hefty fines, and the ruin of their reputations. It also considers the impact on their families, particularly the children whose college admissions were at the center of the scandal. Throughout this thread, the narrative raises critical questions about justice, equity, and reform in the college admissions process. It reflects on the broader implications of the scandal for societal views on crime and punishment, especially in cases involving the wealthy and influential. By detailing the trials and the legal strategies on both sides, this part of the audiobook offers listeners a nuanced understanding of the legal challenges and moral complexities at the heart of Operation Varsity Blues, inviting them to consider the delicate balance between accountability. Chapter 7, Consequences and Sentences. Thread A, Sentencing Outcomes and Their Impact. This thread focuses on the sentencing phase for those convicted in the college admissions scandal, detailing the range of penalties handed down by the courts and exploring the broader impact of these sentences on both the individuals involved and the public's perception of justice. It provides an in-depth look at how the legal system addressed the myriad roles and degrees of involvement in the scheme, from the orchestrator, Rick Singer, to the parents, coaches, and administrators who participated. Listeners are guided through the sentencing hearings, where judges weighed the severity of each defendant's actions against factors like cooperation with the investigation, remorse, and the need to deter future misconduct. The audiobook highlights the variability in sentences, which ranged from fines and community service to significant prison terms, reflecting the complex moral and legal calculus at play. The narrative delves into the reactions to these sentences, both from the defendants and the public. It discusses how some viewed the penalties as too lenient, arguing they reflected systemic biases that favor the wealthy and powerful, while others saw them as unduly harsh, particularly for parents who claimed they were acting out of love for their children. This thread also examines the personal and professional consequences for those sentenced, including the loss of careers, reputational damage, and the strain on family relationships. It explores the aftermath of the scandal for the students involved, some of whom were unaware of their parents' actions, focusing on the emotional and educational fallout they experienced. Beyond the individual stories, the audiobook reflects on the wider implications of the sentencing outcomes for the college admissions process and higher education more broadly. It considers whether the penalties imposed have prompted universities to reform their admissions practices and whether the scandal has led to a broader societal reevaluation of the values and pressures that drive the pursuit of elite education. Through detailed storytelling and analysis, this part of the audiobook offers listeners a comprehensive view of the consequences faced by those involved in Operation Varsity Blues. It invites reflection on the nature of justice and the potential for systemic change in the wake of one of the most high-profile scandals in the history of American higher education. Chapter 7: Consequences and Sentences. Thread B: Societal Reactions and Calls for Reform. This thread explores the societal reactions to the sentencing outcomes of the college admissions scandal and the widespread calls for reform that emerged in its aftermath. It delves into the public discourse surrounding issues of privilege, inequality, and the integrity of the college admissions process, highlighting how the scandal became a catalyst for debate and change. Listeners are introduced to the diverse range of voices that contributed to the conversation, from educators and policymakers to students and parents across the country. The audiobook captures the sense of betrayal felt by many who saw the scandal as emblematic of deeper inequities within the education system and society at large. It illustrates the anger and frustration directed towards the individuals involved, but also towards the institutions and systemic practices that allowed such corruption to flourish. The narrative examines the specific reforms proposed in the wake of the scandal, including changes to standardized testing policies, increased transparency in college admissions, and the reconsideration of legacy and donor-related admissions practices. It discusses the efforts by universities to restore trust in their admissions processes, detailing the measures some institutions have taken to review and strengthen their policies. This thread also reflects on the broader cultural implications of the scandal, considering its impact on the American dream and the value placed on elite education. It explores the ongoing debate about meritocracy, the pressure placed on young people to achieve at all costs, and the societal obsession with prestigious institutions. Through interviews, op-eds, and social media excerpts, the audiobook presents a multifaceted view of the national reaction, capturing the complexity of the issues at stake. It highlights the challenges of achieving meaningful reform in a system deeply intertwined with social and economic status, while also showcasing the individuals and groups committed to making higher education more equitable and transparent. By focusing on the societal reactions and the push for reform, this part of the audiobook encourages listeners to consider their own views on education, success, and fairness. It presents the college admissions scandal not just as a tale of individual wrongdoing, but as a moment of collective reflection on the values that shape American society and the paths to opportunity within it. Chapter 8: Bouncing Back. Thread A: Personal redemption and public forgiveness. This thread navigates the personal journeys of redemption undertaken by some individuals involved in the college admissions scandal, as well as the varying degrees of public forgiveness they encountered. It delves into the aftermath of the legal battles and public scrutiny, focusing on the efforts made by convicted participants to rebuild their lives and make amends for their actions. Listeners are introduced to stories of personal growth and contrition, where some of the parents, coaches, and administrators involved have taken steps towards redemption. This includes engaging in community service beyond their court-mandated requirements, speaking out about the pressures and ethical lapses that led to their involvement in the scandal, and participating in educational reform initiatives. The audiobook explores the complex process of seeking forgiveness, both from the public and from those more directly impacted by the scandal, such as students who were unfairly disadvantaged by the rigged admissions process. It considers the factors that influence public perceptions of genuine remorse and redemption, including the sincerity of the individual's efforts, the impact of their actions, and the societal appetite for stories of personal growth following wrongdoing. This thread also examines the challenges of moving forward in a society that often seeks punitive rather than restorative justice. It discusses the role of the media in shaping narratives of redemption and the ways in which individuals navigate the balance between taking responsibility for their actions and seeking a second chance. Through interviews, reflections, and analysis, this part of the audiobook offers a nuanced look at the themes of forgiveness and redemption in the context of a scandal that exposed deep societal faults. It invites listeners to consider the possibilities for personal change and the capacity of society to forgive, highlighting the human capacity for resilience and transformation in the face of adversity. Chapter 8, Bouncing Back. Thread B, Institutional Changes and Educational Reform. This thread explores the significant institutional changes and educational reforms that emerged in response to the college admissions scandal, highlighting the efforts made by universities, regulatory bodies, and advocacy groups to address the systemic issues the scandal brought to light. It offers an in-depth look at how the higher education sector is seeking to rebuild trust and ensure fairness in the admissions process. Listeners are guided through the various reforms implemented by colleges and universities across the nation. These include overhauling admissions policies, increasing transparency around athletic recruitments, and reevaluating the role of standardized tests in the application process. The audiobook details specific examples of policy changes, such as universities dropping legacy admissions or making SAT and ACT scores optional, and discusses the impact of these changes on prospective students. The narrative also delves into the broader movements for educational equity that gained momentum in the wake of the scandal. It features the work of advocacy groups pushing for more comprehensive reforms to address inequalities in access to higher education. This includes efforts to dismantle barriers faced by underrepresented students, such as socioeconomic disparities and racial biases in admissions. This thread examines the challenges and resistance faced by reform advocates, from institutional inertia to pushback from those who benefit from the status quo. It discusses the ongoing debates about the best ways to ensure diversity and equality of opportunity in elite institutions, including the merits and drawbacks of various proposed solutions. Through expert interviews, case studies, and analysis, this part of the audiobook provides a hopeful yet realistic view of the potential for meaningful change within the American educational system. It highlights the importance of collective action and sustained advocacy in driving systemic reform, and offers a vision of a more equitable and transparent future for college admissions. By focusing on the institutional changes and educational reforms spurred by the scandal, this thread encourages listeners to think critically about the role of education in society and the values that should guide the admissions process. It presents the college admissions. Chapter 9, Reforms and Reflections. Thread A, How the Scandal Changed the College Admissions Landscape. This thread delves into the profound impact the college admissions scandal had on the landscape of higher education, examining the shifts in policies, practices, and perceptions that have taken place in its wake. It provides listeners with an overview of how the scandal served as a wake-up call, prompting a critical reassessment of the college admissions process and the values it reflects. Listeners are taken through a comprehensive review of the changes implemented by universities to prevent future abuses of the admissions system. This includes the adoption of more rigorous oversight mechanisms for athletic recruitments, enhanced scrutiny of application materials, and the implementation of new checks and balances designed to ensure the integrity of admissions decisions. The audiobook explores the broader cultural shift towards questioning the fairness and transparency of the college admissions process. It highlights the increased public scrutiny of practices such as legacy admissions and donation-based admissions advantages, discussing how these have come under fire as symbols of systemic inequality. The narrative also covers the rise in demand for holistic admissions processes that consider a wider range of student achievements and experiences, beyond standardized test scores and elite extracurricular activities. This thread examines the dialogue between educational institutions, policymakers, students, and the public about what equitable access to higher education should look like. It includes perspectives from a diverse array of stakeholders, from students who have navigated the admissions process post-scandal to admissions officers committed to reforming their practices. Through detailed storytelling and analysis, this part of the audiobook paints a picture of a college admissions landscape in flux, one that is slowly moving towards greater inclusivity and fairness. It reflects on the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in redefining success and merit in the context of higher education, inviting listeners to consider their own beliefs about the purpose and priorities of the college admissions process. Chapter 9: Reforms and Reflections. Thread B: Personal and Societal Reflections on the Value of Education. This thread focuses on the deeper, more introspective responses elicited by the college admissions scandal, examining how individuals and society at large have reconsidered the value and purpose of education in the aftermath. It explores the philosophical and ethical questions raised by the scandal, offering listeners a space to contemplate the broader implications for personal growth and societal progress. The narrative delves into the introspection of parents, students, educators, and the general public, who have been prompted to question the pressures associated with elite college admissions. It discusses how the scandal has led many to reflect on the definitions of success and the role that education plays in shaping one's character and future prospects. This includes a critical look at the societal glorification of prestigious institutions and the sometimes unhealthy competition to secure a spot at these universities. Listeners are presented with stories of individuals who have chosen alternative educational paths, highlighting the growing appreciation for community colleges, vocational training, and gap years. The audiobook explores the realization that there are multiple pathways to success, each valuable and worthy of respect. It challenges the notion that prestige equates to worth, encouraging a more inclusive view of educational achievement. This thread also considers the impact of the scandal on the mental health of young people, discussing the intense pressure to excel academically and the toll it can take. It features insights from psychologists and educators on the importance of fostering resilience, curiosity, and a love of learning above mere achievement. Through interviews and reflective commentary, this part of the audiobook invites listeners to engage in a broader conversation about the purposes of education. It asks whether the ultimate goal is the acquisition of knowledge and the development of critical thinking and moral character, rather than merely a means to secure economic advantage or social status. By weaving together personal stories with societal reflections, this thread offers a hopeful vision of the future of education, one that values diversity, equity, and the holistic development of individuals. It challenges listeners to reconsider their own values and aspirations, encouraging a shift towards a more compassionate and comprehensive understanding of what it means to be educated. Chapter 10: Epilogue: Education After the Scandal. Looking ahead: the future of college admissions and educational equity. In this concluding chapter, the narrative shifts towards a forward-looking perspective, considering the long-term implications of the college admissions scandal on higher education and society's understanding of fairness, merit, and opportunity. It synthesizes the lessons learned from the scandal and reflects on the potential pathways to a more equitable and transparent educational landscape. Listeners are presented with expert analyses and predictions about the future of college admissions. This includes discussions on the evolving criteria for admissions decisions, with a greater emphasis on diversity, character, and individual stories over standardized test scores and resume padding activities. The audiobook explores how technology and data analytics might be harnessed to create more objective and holistic admissions processes, reducing the influence of subjective biases and corruption. The narrative also addresses the ongoing challenges and debates surrounding educational equity, particularly the disparities that exist due to socioeconomic status, race, and geography. It highlights innovative initiatives and programs aimed at leveling the playing field, from expanded access to quality preparatory resources to mentorship programs that guide underrepresented students through the admissions process. Listeners are invited to consider the broader cultural shifts that may be necessary to support these changes, including redefining societal notions of success and prestige in education. The audiobook suggests that a more informed and critical public discourse on education can contribute to systemic reforms, encouraging policies and practices that prioritize learning, personal development, and the collective good over individual achievement and competition. This chapter not only offers a hopeful vision for the future of education, but also serves as a call to action. It encourages all stakeholders, students, parents, educators, policymakers, and the public to engage in the ongoing work of reforming the educational system. By fostering an environment of transparency, inclusivity, and integrity, the audiobook posits that the legacy of the college admission scandal can ultimately lead to positive transformations in how society values and approaches education. Through this reflective and aspirational epilogue, listeners are left with a sense of possibility and responsibility.